Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. So today I'm going to be reviewing Zelda Fitzgerald, Save Me the Waltz. Now this is semi-autobiographical. Now I have already kind of discussed this. It's very simple. It's about a young girl named Alabama who wants to be a prima ballerina. She suffers some losses in her life. She's married to a gentleman named David. The reason I wanted to do a more in-depth review was not because of the book, but it was because of the book at the same time. Bear with me. So, Zelda Fitzgerald suffered from schizophrenia, and she was placed in a mental health facility. At the time, she was in the top of the line one where the doctors believed that giving the treatment of fresh food, clean water, and fresh air was a bonus, which was very new to the industry and very, yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Very strange for a doctor to think that that was going to work more than taking the patient and locking them down on a bed and not allowing them to leave their area and using electroshock treatment. So, let's just be clear here, Zelda was being taken care of very well. Now, the story of Zelda and Scott Fitzgerald is very sad. I'm not going to lie. Zelda, unfortunately, there was a point at night where the patients in her ward would be restrained so that they could sleep and that the nurses and doctors could go about their business and not worry about the patients. And on March 10th, 1948, Zelda Fitzgerald died in a fire that was set by an angry nurse at her mental health facility, and she burned along with 8 other patients, which is terrible. So not a pretty end. Zelda didn't have a pretty life. She lived in the 1920s, Roaring 20s, jazz king and queen, her and her husband. Like, it was definitely portrayed that they had it all together, but they really didn't. Scott wanted to support her as much as humanly possible, but there was an element of doctors and Scott Fitzgerald both telling her that she was a terrible writer and that it was his job to write, not hers. This book she wrote after her first stay at a mental hospital, and then she was going to write a second novel that was begun discussing her experience in the mental health facility, and they told her her writing was no good, and as a result, the book was never actually finished or published. And that's really disappointing to me because that's a huge part of history that's now lost. Tender as the Night is the next book I will be reading at some point. For a classic, it was around the same time period while Zelda was in the mental health facility, and it's from Scott Fitzgerald's perspective. I feel very bad for this couple. He was very into booze, he was very 20s, and he wrote a lot of books about the Roaring 20s. For example, his most famous, The Great Gatsby. And when the Great Depression hit, no one wanted his work because nobody wanted to remember the Roaring 20s. So he was stuck in this situation where he was trying to pay for his wife's treatment so that she could live and function, and he couldn't because he couldn't make money off of his books anymore because nobody wanted them anymore. And Zelda was slowly losing her mind, and she was in and out of conscious in terms of, if you know anything about schizophrenia, there's an element of it has a little bit to do, it overlaps a little bit with how I am, where there's fugue states, but with them, they can't come back as easily. For schizophrenics, there's really no way to bring them back aside from medication. Now, Zelda did actually respond very well to the treatment of healthy, clean water, good food, being allowed outside, and some medication, but it was all experimental at that time. So, all very relative. Now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you know I'm wrong, that Zelda really wanted this book to be as autobiographical as possible, but at the same time, she almost wanted to separate herself from the characters. And it took me a while to get into this book, but then I read it in one sitting and it worked because I felt like I needed to read it in one sitting. Forgive the sun, it is coming out. I really loved this. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's very underrated and very underhyped, which is why I put it in my underhyped readathon. I also put it in because it's very clear that Zelda was kind of pushed to the side because of how famous her husband was. And that's sad. And it's really sad to think that somebody suffering from mental illness could be so clearly just ignored, I guess would be the right word, to think that their opinion and their thoughts don't matter. It's just very sad. So that was what I really wanted to talk about with Zelda Fitzgerald, was more her life and what she went through as a person with her schizophrenia, more than the book. The book I thought was wonderful, but I think if you ignore her history, the book is less wonderful. But if you know and learn a little bit about her first, you really understand and see a lot more of the angst that she's put into this and the effort she's put in. It's very clear that she wanted to leave a memory, leave a mark, leave a legacy. And I think she did that. All right, guys. This is Save Me the Waltz by Zelda Fitzgerald, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.